Good evening, everyone. If we could have a little less background noise, it would help, that is. Thank you. It is really a great pleasure for me to say once again to welcome you all to this centennial celebration for the Practice School. It certainly is a 1 in 100 years type event, and I think it's important that we celebrate in the way that we have. But I hope you've had a good evening and have been able to socialize and dined well. What I would... I'm not finished yet. What we do normally at these dinners every year is we recognize the students that have performed exceptionally well at the Practice School stations. So we have a number of awards that we present at our normal annual dinners. These awards are for, as I said, students that have done exceptionally well at the Practice School. They are decided upon by the station directors. They get together, they make the decisions, and they debate who should be the recipients of these awards. And we will have 7 awards tonight. Unfortunately, only 4 of the people are here. These awards are named after people that have been a very instrumental and a significant part of the Practice School program. And so what we'd like to do tonight is ask some folk that knew these, the award named, the people after whom the awards are named, to give us a description as to why we have these particular awards. So first I'd like to ask Bill Durr to step up here to tell us about the Rosemary Witovich Award.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Alan. I was a station director at Oak Ridge National Lab during the fall of 1981. And I'm grateful to provide to you some background about this memorial award, which is in the name of Rosemary Witovich. The photo that you see over here is Rosemary 35 years ago, almost to the day. This was taken during the 3rd or 4th week of October of 1981. Ralph Holtzman was the assistant director. Alice Maxwell, who you all knew, was also the administrator at Oak Ridge during that time. And Rosemary came to Practice School from the Worcester Polytechnic Institute and with some experience at the Rogers Corporation. And she worked on 2 projects. First, she worked on developing a process model for anaerobic digestion of tertiary wastewater. Rather innovative in 1981, we had a pilot plant that Oak Ridge National Lab had set up for the city of Knoxville, and the pilot plant was about 1/3 scale. If any of you know about these devices, these are quite large because the biologics have heat constants that are very low. And she was successful in developing this particular technology for the use of scale-up and for identifying process problems. The best example of this technology you see nowadays when you fly into Logan Airport, you look out the window and you see these large egg-shaped devices. These are anaerobic digesters, which were engineered maybe 10 years later, and she was really at the forefront of the technology working at Oak Ridge. The second project that she worked on pseudo-components of vapor-liquid components for coal liquefaction, looking at boiling point ranges and the likes to achieve vapor-liquid separation for a technology that the lab was getting involved in at the time. She demonstrated real great leadership skills and teammanship, and she contributed practical solutions to the lab. In fact, one of the colleagues that she worked with is here tonight, Pat Bagot. Pat, you're right there. She worked with Pat Bagot on this particular problem dealing with coal liquids that I discussed. And Pat can demonstrate and verify that she had a unique attribute of teammanship that she is remembered by in this award. You know, practice school is a hard program. We heard this morning and this afternoon about teams splitting apart and teams coming together, and she had the unique gift of kindness and concern for the well-being of others to pull teams together and make them successful. And that is what she's remembered for in this particular award. And Pat was the first recipient of the award back in 1982, I want to say. Rosemarie was a remarkable student. She died shortly after leaving practice school at Oak Ridge, and she is remembered by this award. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Alan or to Bob to indicate who the recipient is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. The recipient of the award is Morgan Heinert. At both stations, Morgan was everywhere in all of his projects, doing his jobs, mindful and helping with others, never in a controlling fashion, but simply keeping the big picture in mind and doing everything he could to help his team achieve its objectives. And he could do a lot, whether it was numerical calculations, learning 2 new software packages, or running a variety of chemical analyses, always looking for the underlying physics. He was always calm, communicative, and practical, very effective. In summary, Morgan was extremely helpful and considerate to everyone, with kindness and concern, along with the added plus of superior leadership and technical execution of project objectives. Unfortunately, Morgan could not be with us tonight, but I still would like us to applaud him for his accomplishments and for recognition of his work. I'd now like to ask Ken Smith to come forward and say a few words.
I've had the good fortune and privilege to know each of the other 3 individuals for whom the prizes have been named. So I was asked to say a few words about each of them. This is Ed Vivian, strictly Johnson Edward Vivian, but nobody ever called him anything but Ed. Born in Montreal, grew up there in Montreal, was all the things you'd expect a young Canadian to be. He loved to fish, and he loved to hike, and he loved to climb mountains, and he loved to motorcycle. And he entered McGill University as a freshman, and despite all the things I just said about mountain climbing and the like, he entered there in the music department, intending to be a concert pianist, in which he was also very skilled. But McGill, in its wisdom, put him in a room with a chap who happened to be a chemical engineer. And this roommate raved about the wonders of chemical engineering and finally got Ed to say, geez, you know, if it's that good, maybe I should go to one of these courses and see what it's all about. And so he did, decided he liked it better than the piano. And so he changed to chemical engineering, graduated from McGill, came to MIT in the mid-30s, quickly got a master's degree, went off to Bangor to be an assistant director at the Bangor station of the practice school. Not too long after that, the war arrived, and MIT was engaged in a number of wartime projects. One of those was to address the question of how should we best win uranium metal from the uranium ore. And Ed worked on that project. And contributed a great deal to it. It was at that point that he became interested in the questions of absorption and simultaneous gas absorption and chemical reaction. He ended up joining the faculty in 1942. wasn't able to defend his thesis until 1945, because then it was declassified. And proceeded to a career which, on the research side, certainly emphasized gas absorption and chemical reaction, often in the context of the pulp and paper industry. On the pedagogical side, he was certainly enormously committed to the practice school. He was a director at Bangor, he was a director at Oak Ridge, he was a director at Lackawanna. He was the Cambridge-based director on 2 long separate occasions. He went to Birla, to India, to help Birla Institute of Technology and Science set up their practice school. And so in many ways, he is Mr. Practice School. There was a photo shown this afternoon of a group climbing Mount Katahdin, and he was famous for leading those groups up the mountain. There was a little inset down in the lower right of that corner. I think it was it. And that was one of his well-known characteristics, was leading that group. He perhaps contributed more in terms of actually being at practice school stations and running it from the Cambridge base than anybody else that I could mention. But way to guy.
Thank you, Ken. I also remember Ed as being a very kind and generous gentleman. I was fortunate when I first arrived as a rather worried and scared young assistant professor. I shared an office suite with him, and he did a lot to help me feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more at home at MIT. I'm really pleased that we can announce 2 awards for the Vivian Award, 2 recipients. The first is Joey Gu, and this is the description that the station directors have given me. If you want to create your own project and convince your sponsors that this is a better approach to solving the problem or issues at hand, consult with Joey on how to do it. He was able to accomplish just that. Development of an innovative yet relatively straightforward use of classical chemical engineering techniques to a complex transport problem resulted in an entirely new and unique and somewhat simplified approach. This became a useful tool for the sponsors to assess and validate process improvements associated with continuous manufacturing protocols and industrial scale systems. Not only did his technical expertise have his sponsors in awe, but his leadership and persuasiveness led to an extremely cooperative environment in the group. Joey never took total credit for the success, since he clearly understood that a team effort was needed, and input from his highly intelligent and eagerly enthusiastic partners only made the outcome more beneficial to all parties involved. So Joey, if you could please join us at the podium. Congratulations, Joe. You're well deserved. And there's a little well done, Joey. The second recipient, unfortunately, could not be with us. She's actually moved to Stanford now. She's on the chemical engineering department there, but she would have been here. It's better on the East Coast than the West Coast, we know that. But she was a bridesmaid at a friend's wedding, and she got her priorities wrong and went to the wedding instead. It's Larissa Kuntz, and I know Larissa pretty well because she was in the courses we taught, and she was a TA for us, in addition to having gone through the practice school. A top-notch young lady, top of her class, straight A pluses, you name it. So I'm really pleased to see her get this award. The description that was provided to me is that throughout her practice school experience, Larissa consistently demonstrated excellence in her technical work, communication skills, and leadership roles. As a great example of this, she was a driving force for a project which was barely past the conceptual stage when her team arrived, literally starting from hand-drawn flow sheets. And by the end of the month, she and her team, had redesigned 4 major equipment trains and presented 16 different, fully detailed and thoroughly vetted P&IDs. Both the station directors and the host companies were extremely impressed by her performance, her project management, and her tenacity in getting the important questions asked. Asked the right question. And most importantly, she answered these too. The level of competence and urgency which she personally brought to her projects was absolutely essential in achieving the extremely successful outcomes. So even though she can't be here to join us, I'd like to sort of join a round of applause for her accomplishments.
In the context, to go back for a moment to Ed Vivian, I meant to mention that he was also the first member of this faculty to win the Alan P. Colburn Award of the AACHE, and I believe he met his wife Florence when he was at the Bangor station. So, yeah. But to move on to the next award, this is Bill Rousseau. Bill was born in San Francisco, brought up in California, attended Stanford University as an undergraduate, came to MIT to go to grad school, and like Ed, got a master's degree in the mid-30s. Then joined what was then the E.B. Badger Company. The E.B. Badger Company was a very old Boston firm, started in the early 1800s, largely as an equipment manufacturer, so that if you needed to make rum, they would give you a still. And if you wanted to make wood alcohol, as methyl was then called, they'd give you a still for that. And, but the E.B. Badger Company had morphed into what was really an A&E firm. And Bill went to work for them in the late 30s. During the late 30s and through the war years, Badger did very nicely. In fact, it did splendidly by Bill, who met his wife Margaret there. Margaret was the first woman to win a PhD in chemical engineering, went on to have a very distinguished career of her own, but that's not today's subject. The Badger encountered some difficulties subsequent to the war years. And there may be people in this room that know it better than I. I don't know it very well, so I'm on difficult grounds here. Nonetheless, let me try. I believe some of the then employees of the Badger Company decided there was enough merit in that company so that they should try to buy it. And that Bill and a handful of other employees did exactly that. Bill became vice chairman. Bill and those other people, one of whom was John Starr, not so coincidentally another practice school grad, built that company into one of the premier A&E firms in the country. They showed a lot of foresight. They pioneered a lot of technologies. They built the building that you see today at 1 Broadway in Kendall Square. Kendall Square was still a desert when they had the foresight to move into it. It was the first really new building in there in decades. So they really started that change. Bill was a marvelous guy, had a wonderful sense of people. I had the good fortune to share an office suite with him for maybe 2 or 3 years. He started every day with a joke. Many of them were terrible. But he loved just starting the day that way, and he loved however you reacted to it. And he was just so delightful to be around that it was terrific. And the things he really cared about were MIT, or more properly, the practice school, the department, and the institute in that order. The other thing he cared deeply about was the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And he was very generous to both the department, the practice school, and the BSO. Perhaps the best story in terms of the practice school particularly is that I found myself, I think in June of 1977, suddenly being department head. And within a week or two realizing September's not very far away and we don't have enough practice school stations for the fall. So I went to Bill, and knowing that he had a lot of contacts in the industry, and told him my tale of woe. And in his usual way, he didn't say too much for a couple of minutes. And then he said, well, you know, Jack Welch owes me a favor. And I think this is the right time to collect it. And 2 weeks later, Bill and I were together in Schenectady. And it was very obvious that everybody that we were meeting with had already been told what the answer should be. And as you heard earlier today, that particular station is one of the most successful stations in the history of the practice school. It was a fantastic thing, and the help from the top of GE really contributed to that, and it was really Bill that made it possible.
Thank you, Ken. I think that describes Bill extremely well. I was actually fortunate again when I first arrived at MIT that Bill was in the office next to me. He's a senior lecturer and he spent a lot of time helping the department, and in particular visiting practice school stations all the time. It was always fun to have Bill around because he used to come in every morning and tell a joke. It wasn't a very good joke or anything like that, but it was still an enjoyable joke, and so I enjoyed having him as a neighbor. So I'd like to announce the 2 awards for the William C. Rousseau Award in Leadership and Ethics in Chemical Engineering Practice. The first is for Max Liu. He was a top performer and was extremely level-headed and consistent. He was always focused and receptive to suggestions and comments, and his calm and collected attitude kept his groups unified while still allowing technical dissent, leading to impressive project outcomes. In situations involving material that was unfamiliar to company sponsors, his team took particular care to both deliver results honestly and accurately, and also to find creative ways to transfer the deliverables, enabling long-term workflow improvements in the company's research methods. Max had an impressive ability to gain the confidence of his peers and company contacts, and consistently demonstrated the confidence to be well-founded. So I'm very pleased to give the award to Max. If you could join me up there.
Thank you. Great, thank you very much.
The second award that I wish to give tonight, the Rousseau Award, is to Connor Coley. A major objective of the practice school is to help our gifted students evolve into being the best they can be, and of course to finding out what their true strengths are. It was a great pleasure to observe this evolution of Connor, from a shy team member in a technically competent support role to become a confident project leader that could readily assess the risks involved in its implementation. These involved not only the probability of technical success, but process safety issues and the product's impact on the environment and consumer acceptance. His sponsors found his confident, non-arrogant approach quite welcoming, especially in the extremely competitive market or field of interest. Consequently, when combined with a technically strong, innovative approach to issues, led to a successful outcome well beyond his expectations. So, Connor, this is really a great pleasure to give you this award.
The last of these awards is named for Jefferson William Tester, who has the, and I now must be much more careful because he's here tonight to defend himself. But Jeff, whom you can see front and center in this photo from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Is known to most of you, but he grew up in Connecticut, where I understand that he loved working on the nearby farms, and subsequently went to Cornell, where he got both a bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering. Came here to pursue his doctorate, worked for Bob Reed and Jeff Margolis, and I think that experience with Bob Reed in particular did a lot to convince Jeff that the practice school was a good thing, to convince Jeff that even thermodynamics was a good thing. Upon graduation, he took on the job of director at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory Practice School Station, as you see, and made a mark for himself as being a very special kind of director. Came back to the Institute and was a faculty member here for a year or two, and then went off to Los Alamos. And as we discussed this afternoon, when the practice school needed somebody to get it back to doing the things it should be doing, it was to Jeff that the department turned in order to straighten it out. So we've done and there's no doubt that he's done a magnificent job of exactly that. So.
I've been told to stand back.
The most important thing is the director of the practice school. You know, the director of practice school is a very rare individual who can do a lot of things ordinary professors cannot do. You know, have to be an organizer. They have to be a motivations person, a team builder, and understands industry, understands fundamental science. So we were very fortunate that we were able to persuade Jefferson Tester to join us.
I got involved in practice school mostly because I was at MIT to get a PhD in chemical engineering, and Jefferson Tester kept pestering every incoming graduate student, you got to go to practice school. And he would get us to come. He'd be, you got to eat, come to the thing, I got food. All right, well.
I just wanted to expose everybody to the value of this. And so I would talk to every new student that came to MIT, and I'd say, tell me why you shouldn't go to the practice school, you know, and they'd have a whole bunch of things, you know, and I'd say that's not good enough, you know. You have to have a much better reason for why you wouldn't go.
The day Professor Tester pulled me aside and asked me about practice school, as I think I said earlier, I hadn't given any consideration. That was a really important day. I didn't know it at the time. I probably didn't know it for years later, right? But I've never had a chance to say this to him. So if he was watching, I'll say it now. Thank you, right? This was. I'm glad he asked me if I was interested, because it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
I've been the recipient of that arm twisting, not to go to the practice school, but to run a station for Jeff. I just knew I'd been here 18 months, and he sent me off to Brookhaven and sent me off again. And then when he got coerced into being the director of the energy lab, he twisted my arm again to take over from him. But fortunately, he had done such a wonderful job in reviving the program that all I had to do was become its caretaker. And I've enjoyed doing that for the last 27 years. Thank you, Jeff. Again, we have two recipients of the Jefferson W. Tester Award for recognition of enthusiasm, commitment, and organization of practice school work. Students may be enthusiastic and organized, but they can never quite attain the heights that Jeff's enthusiasm can get. But anyway, the first recipient, unfortunately, cannot be with us tonight, is Nick Schickel. He was a project leader in his first assignment at Calgary. We had a station in Calgary at Cenovus Energy and the oil sands business. And was so technically thorough and successful that management requested a second performance of his report and so on for a broader dissemination of the group's final report around the company. Nick was very much the lifeblood of his practice school group, always ready to lend a helping hand or perhaps a helping beer. Nick helped foster an energetic, inclusive, and highly productive environment for his fellow practice school students. Every day, he arrived early, stayed late, and inspired the other students to do the same. He even took the lead in organizing the group events and trips every single weekend. In the true tradition of one Jefferson W. Tester, he led the weekend hiking expeditions to the Canmore area of Banff National Park. On site, he reached out and made contact with company personnel freely and effortlessly, often saving his groups much time and effort by getting in touch with the right people at the right time. Nick truly showcased that he is both a very talented and a highly personable chemical engineer, a model for success. Unfortunately, he can't be with us tonight, but let's applaud him anyway. I'd say by the sound of the ruckus over there, he had a big fan club. Okay, the last recipient is, again, of the Tester Award is Musun Hong. Staying positive and being on top of things is the only path forward that made sense to Musun. Despite equipment failures, disappointing results from equipment malfunctions and limitations in analysis, and an overall discouraging field to obtaining successful outcomes for a number of its projects, Musun's character would not allow failure. He learned from failure. His enthusiastic approach and leadership, both as a team leader and by example in other projects, not only led to success, but even encouraged members of the sponsor support staff to excel in their efforts. His eagerness to be a team player was outstanding. Even though he did uncover some brilliant approaches to problem solutions, he always sought out input from everyone involved. Team members, station directors, and of course, importantly, the sponsors. He must have been born with a synergist gene, since his presence allowed everyone to be successful, and he did not seek out individual praise, although he was greatly deserving of such accolades. So Musun, if you could join me up here, that would be great. Well, it really is a wonderful experience to be able to be here to congratulate these shining stars in the department. That's the end of the award ceremony, but I know that Sam Fleming would like to say a few words about the practice school. He promised just a few, right, Sam? Okay.
Thanks, Ken, for throwing my talk down on the floor. Let me first express to the captain of the flagship, the director, the heartfelt thanks of all of us for a wonderful program consistent with the excellence of this program and its committee. I have a beer riding on this with Hanlon, who said, "You have a minute. I owe you a beer." I would like to adopt a bit of formalism. We get to do this once a century, right? So in the English tradition, Nobel laureates, that would be Sergio and Howie, chairman of corporations, chief technology officers, chief operating officers, officers of corporation, cabinet secretaries, and government and United Nations officials, university presidents, deans, faculty, the director of the practice school, otherwise known as the captain of the flagship, alumni, students, and consultants, generous benefactors and spouses and significant others of the David H. Koch School of Chemical Engineering Practice, the MIT School of Chemical Engineering Practice, and the Engineering Practice School at Oak Ridge. And in special tribute tonight, I don't know that she's here, if she would please identify herself, is Professor Rosalind Williams, who is a granddaughter of Warren K. Lewis, a professor at the Institute. Doc Lewis, of course, is one of the several founders of the profession of chemical engineering in the United States. And William H. Walker, Arthur D. Hone Little, George Eastman, MIT President McLaurin, and we are their legatees. George Eastman's $300,000 in 1916 in present value, by multiplying the ratio of the consumer price indices, is $6.6 million. It was an expendable fund. This afternoon, there was talk with regard to maybe the time to re-endow the practice school. I threw out the number 10. Hatton immediately says, raise you to 15. Okay. So with that mouthful to address people, shortened it is, we, the practice school. The practice school is the longest running, most successful as measured by your contributions, program in graduate education at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is not without other contributions. Tonight we celebrate the centennial, and we look back, and most importantly, we look ahead. What would Walker have thought about where we are today? What will the practice school look like in 100 years? We don't have the slightest idea, but we know certain things. The pedagogy is sound. As a personal note, like many, most of you, and there's been commentary on this earlier today, I'm certain that the practice school transformed me and molded me into what I've become in the pursuit of knowledge and values and the never-ending pursuit of identifying and solving real problems so that the campsite is better off for our having been here. That was cool. Oh, it only hurts when I stand up. Okay. All right, so now then, permit me to quote William H. Walker a year after the first said. This is describing the graduate. This is the man, today of course we read person, who has attained a solid foundation in science, has become a keen and accurate observer, an exact and logical thinker, and who has a love for the application of this knowledge and training to the investigation and solution of many problems which modern industry presents. At the 75th, John Mattel wrote The Flagship. Beth Doherty has just completed I Practice, about 35 of us who've had the opportunity to contribute. From my standpoint, I thank Providence just to be in your company. So the flagship sails on at flank speed into the new century. So would you fill your glass and join me in a toast to the flagship, flank speed ahead, steady as she goes, Captain. Please. Here we go, here we go. The flagship, flank speed ahead, steady as she goes, Captain.
Thank you, Sam, for that wonderful and stirring tribute to the practice school. I agree with you. It's a flagship program. We do not know where we're going to be in 100 years' time, but as you pointed out, we are still going to be going strong. We'll still have the same pedagogy, but we may have a very different set of projects and companies with which to work. It's been a wonderful day. I've really appreciated and enjoyed having so many people visiting us, the alumni, the spouses, friends, family, and so on for this program. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this really special occasion, and we'd like to encourage you to enjoy the rest of the evening. We will having dancing? Yes. We're having dancing. I think Bob may be leading the way. I'm not sure. But we will be having dancing somewhere over there. Where? There? Yes. No. And there's also a photo booth. And we'd invite you all to go there and have photos taken of you with your loved ones and with your colleagues and friends and former teammates. So please do enjoy the rest of the evening, and thanks once again. Oh yes, I forgot about this. There is a nitrogen ice cream. Yes. Yeah. Something like that. It's frozen ice cream, frozen with nitrogen. I'm not sure what the full story is. It's around there, and I suggest that you all partake of it as soon as you can. Thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye-bye.